Hello, and welcome back to Sharing a Chapter a Day. This is Do, Ra, me, and today I will be reading Chapter 72 of Engagement in Peril by Dara, Odoe, Sok. Chapter 72 is titled Transfer Without Psychiatry Permission. Around mid-September of 1998, I had orders to go to Okinawa, Japan, which I undeniably and angrily refused to accept. Order assigned me to the 3rd Marine Division in Okinawa, Japan, and I was awfully pissed at that time and didn't want to be around Marines at all. Definitely not at that moment then. Fortunately, I was allowed to refuse that one direct order, and in October of 1998, I received a new order, which told that I was assigned to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, attached with the 2nd Marine Division, which I didn't much like either, but I was still in the States and close enough to my family back in Long Beach, which is about 3,000 miles away, and of course, I wasn't allowed to refuse a second direct order by the personnel department. Before departing from Newport and leaving for North Carolina, I took leave and went home to Long Beach, California to get my sassy car, my cherry red Honda. I spent my last few nights in Newport hanging out with Eileen at the recreational hall and at her dorm room. We didn't have much to say to each other on those nights. We were somewhat disappointed and saddened about the ordeal. We weren't gonna see each other anymore. And she's been there so long, and here I am, leaving much earlier than she is. We said the common good lucks and well wishes to each other. We didn't bother having sex that last night together. We weren't really in the mood. We just cuddled in each other's arm and enjoyed our last few moments together, sleeping together in her bed, fully clothed, and giving each other warm hugs and soft kisses as we laid there side by side throughout our comfortable last night together. I told Eileen how much I would miss her and thank her for being around and being there to listen to my woes, anguish, and frustration, and for easing some of my anxieties throughout this whole time that we've known each other here in the desolate Newport, Rhode Island. She sincerely smiled and told me the same. With my new orders and pack in hand, I checked out of the command a day before my due date, and on the morning that I had to leave, Eileen was given permission to drive me to T.F. Green Airport in Warwick. That early morning, my sweet Eileen picked me up in a white government pickup truck around 0730, where I loaded my duty and sea bags and gear into the empty open cab, boarded the truck, and made our way out of the naval base and headed toward Rhode Island's airport. She drove toward the base entry and exit. Once at the sentry and our identification card was checked, and then we were allowed to leave the military compound. I gave the sentry security guard a flick of my middle finger while Eileen laughed about the matter. We both left the miserable place in giggle and laughter as we left for my flight about an hour away by road. I never looked back to what had become of me then in Newport. We talked while on the way to the airport in my flight, while driving there. Eileen gave me several pictures of her and her high school friends as keepsake, and I thanked her by tenderly planting several soft wet kisses on her right clammy, pale cheek while we drove onward. My sudden smooch upon her lovely face brought a warm smile upon her dismissal face as she grinned from ear to ear, and once we arrived there at the airport, Eileen helped me with my bags and gear, and we walked together to my terminal. While I checked in and getting my boarding ticket, she hung around with me for about half an hour or so. We made small talks here and there, facing each other and often smiling, and we stole several tender kisses from one another as we spoke. When it's time for me to board my plane and depart, we warmly hug our goodbyes and a few more quick kisses, wishing one another well and good health. We then passionately kiss each other, our tongues swirling in each other's mouth while we slobber all over each other's face for a wee bit more. We then again held each other tightly, holding on, trying not to let go. But we both knew that we had to part then. It was time for our farewells then, and we had to say our last goodbyes. We didn't bother exchanging any information then. At the time, there was no cell phone in existence or internet back then. A few more kisses and no email, of course. So we weren't able to exchange anything. We didn't even bother exchanging address. A few more kisses and then I leaned to looked on as I walked off into my terminal to board the plane that awaited me. As I looked back at her, she gently waved goodbye, where I smiled with such a smirk and waved back. No, the kind of smirk that Shinshin often did. She saw me off until I disappeared from her view. Once on the plane ride back to Los Angeles, I thought about the event that Aileen and I shared together and the memories that we have created those few weeks we had spent together in Newport, Rhode Island. I sometimes wish I could have spent more time with Aileen, but it's nice to have made a friend there in Newport, Rhode Island, and I hope she remembers me for what I was and for who I am. I really wish then that I could have told Shinshin all about Aileen, but he was elsewhere and doing his own things. I still thought of him no matter where, or what I was doing, or what I was going through then. I hope these books I've written find Aileen one day and remind her of me, the dastardly bastard Dara that I was then, and still I am, the way to this very day. Warm wishes. Warm wishes to you, my lovely friend, Aileen. I arrived at LAX about 5 hours later after several stops at various airports while on my way from Newport, Rhode Island. Once I had landed and got my luggage and belongings, I called my mother and she picked me up in my once pristine cherry red Honda Civic. Mother arrived with my older sister Soteri to pick me up at the Los Angeles International Airport. Mother had taken real good of my car, and I told her that I really appreciated her for her effort and hugged her warmly as she welcomed me home. Once home, I stored my gear at Mom's place and decided to surprise Benevolence at her home. I drove to her house and surprised her family and waited there in their house for Benevolence to get off work from Wells Fargo several hours later. When Benevolence arrived home about 2 hours later, her sister and I hid behind the front door, and when Benevolence walked in and closed the door behind her, we surprisingly welcomed her with hugs and kisses. I told my love of my ordeal during the past months that I had to leave within a few days ago. And I had to leave within a few days ago to North Carolina for my next assigned duty station. I didn't bother telling Benevolence then that I had been promiscuous while I was away, and of course, I was an asshole then. And I was getting my nut off on anyone. So I kept it a secret. I kept it a secret away from Benevolence that I'd been screwing with others. I didn't want her to hurt her then. I didn't want to hurt her in that way then. Damn right, Dara, you sure didn't want to hurt her. That girl really loves you then, and I'm sure she was more faithful to you than you were to her. But then again, she did have that relation with that other guy that when you guys took time apart. My, have the lies and cheat goes full circle, don't you think? What goes around comes around, you son of a bitch. Thank you for listening. This is the end of chapter 72. Be on the lookout for chapter 73, titled Road Trip to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. This is Doe, Ra, me, and I'll see you later. Thank you.